Hi there, and welcome to Seismic Radio. This is a presentation on the Georgia Guidestones. Um, it's quite a bit of almost like a thriller when you look at the story behind the Guidestones and also some of the stuff that's written on those Guidestones. Quickly, my name is Michael Schönborn. If you are listening on the radio, you can check this presentation out on YouTube. Just go to seismicradio.org, click on our YouTube icon, and then you can follow the presentation on YouTube as well, if you wish to do so. You can see a photo of myself up there in the left-hand side corner, and you can see what it's all about right in the middle of the image. That's the Georgia Guidestones, some sort of American Stonehenge. There's a bit of a story behind it. There are four people here, actually five, including myself. There are five people on the first slide. We've got Joe Fendley, who is the owner of, or was the owner, I think he's died in the meantime, of Alberton Granite Corporation, I think it's called. So they're heavy into the granite business. Then we've got Wyatt Martin. He's a bank manager writing this. Then we've got a mystery person by the name of R.C. Christian. And now the question is, does this person really exist? Yeah, it's supposed to be a pseudonym who has ordered the American Stonehenge to be built. Fendley says all he did was just building it, and mystery person ordered it all. And then when you look right on the left-hand side, we get a lot of hatred, and the stones have been vandalized, so they've been painted over, spray painted, and so on. And it's a bit strange that this happens just right there in the middle of nowhere, and that it sort of generates that much controversy. But in a minute, we're going to look what's actually written on those stones and what these stones incorporate. And you can understand why the feelings go quite heavy. And then you've got a gentleman, I'm not sure whether to call him gentleman. I'm sure you recognize straight away Adolf Hitler. He had very strange ideas, which led to the death of millions of people. The problem is some of the stuff that's written on this stone could have actually been, come out of the pen held in Adolf Hitler's hands. Yeah. It's really bizarre. Some of the stuff is really Nazi, fascist philosophy. The only difference is that what the stones represent is an agenda which is seems to be pushed by globalists and by a few select who have got the vision of changing the world's population and making sure we all live in harmony and we are all really in a benevolent status and so on. And obviously, you've guessed it, there's going to be a two-class system. There's going to be the upper class, and there's going to be all the commoners who live in small places and don't do anything dangerous to nature. Right, that's the plot, and it's going to unfold a little bit more. I've also got the 10 Commandments here, and it's do not worship any other gods, do not make any idols, do not misuse the name of God, keep the Sabbath holy, honor your father and mother, do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not lie, do not covet. So these are the 10 Commandments, and I'm sure, so-called Decalogue, I'm sure you've heard them before. And pretty much all of Western society is built on these 10 Commandments. So it's a Judeo-Christian principle. And what we find is that these guys have come up with other 10 commandments. So the number 10 is there again. So it's not 8, 9, 7, 13, 12 or whatever, but 10 commandments. But they are put almost instead of the divine 10 commandments. Okay, I'm just going to go quickly through it. Do not worship any other gods. Do not make any idols. Do not misuse the name of God. So we've got three big commands which are all to do with God and our relationship with God. And then we've got our the fourth one, keep the Sabbath holy. Because God rested on the seventh day, so we are supposed to rest on the seventh day. And then we've got honor your father and mother. So they are all 5 commandments to the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th to deal with interhuman relationships. So the first 4 is all between us and God. Maybe the 4th one is just for ourselves, take some rest, take it easy. And then it says, honor your father and mother, do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not lie, do not covet. So that pretty much arranges life here on earth. Now these guys come up with some other commandments, and it's quite interesting as well how this is all put together, and we're going to see the contrast in a minute. Okay, so it's supposed to be the American Stonehenge. Stonehenge, if you've ever been there in England, it's somewhere south of London. It's in the middle of nowhere, literally in the middle of nowhere. Those blocks of stone came from a far distance. They've all been put up. There's been a lot of speculation of what they do, but the biggie is it's some sort of astronomical clock and maybe ritual place where pagans used to worship their deities in some form or another. And obviously it's a point of pilgrimage for sort of neo-pagans and some people just sort of interested. They go there and check it out and see what it's all about. The weird thing about these stones is there isn't a quarry nearby where these stones are placed, so it seems that they've been moved from great distances. But the Stonehenge thing is another story in its own right, and we can tackle it maybe some other time, because a lot of explanations which are made by so-called scientists, they're really just speculation, and they don't really account how these stones got there and why they were there. Now, the American Stonehenge should be a point of attraction as well. Rumor goes around that Findlay thought that it would attract about 500,000 visitors per year who would just go there, walk around the stones, and hopefully go to Alberton and spend their money on fast food shops, maybe buy some mini Stonehenge made in granite. I don't know, yeah. But this was the expectation by Findlay. So statements to that extent, to that effect, apparently, allegedly, have been made. There's also some astronomical peculiarities. So there are a few holes cut into the stone. So you can see the North Star if you look through a certain hole, or you can see the equinox at certain points. And again, the same in Stonehenge as well. So when the equinox is, the sun rises over a certain point. It's the same with this one as well. So it's supposed to attract people certain times of the year and make Georgia or Alberton a really in or hit place. Okay, where is Alberton placed? Where are the Georgia Guidestones? And you'll be surprised they're in Georgia. That's not the surprise, because there's the Georgia Guidestones, but they're literally in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, the nearest city, big city, is Charlotte and Atlanta. Then you've got some bigger cities. So you've got Athens here and Anderson there. We've got the Interstate 85, and even from the Interstate 85, we are still looking at about 20 miles or so to get to the Georgia Guidestones, which are literally in the middle of nowhere, literally. So we've got where the stones are placed, so it's not like a magic site or anything, just seems to be fairly flat land. I understand it's at some sort of elevation, it's a high point. Then you've got a farm down here, you've got a farm sort of to the south and to the I think it's the east. To the east, you've got another farm about maybe sort of a mile away. There's just like a small patch. There's an area for car parking. Maybe 5-6 cars can be there at any one time. And you can see to the west, just another tiny farm there as well. Apparently, there was some weird deal. There was a bit of land which was bought by the mysterious R.C. Christian. Only a small section of the land was used. The rest of the land was given, I think it was sold for £5,000 in 1979. The stone was erected in 1980, but the rest of the land was still given to be used for agricultural purposes, like grazing cows and things like that, for the farmer who sold the land. So he had like a mega deal. He only had a section of a small part of land, got a bit of money for it, and forever he had the right to use the rest of the land for grazing. So not bad at all. This is what it looks like from it's taken from Google. So if you sort of drive up here, you can see it just looks like an ordinary countryside, and then suddenly in the middle of nowhere, a couple of 100 yards from the main highway, you can see this structure, those Georgia Guidestones. This is nearby, that's what they look like. Again, you can see some slots which are just sort of in human height. There's no human standing there. Would have better chosen a picture where you can find a person as well. The structure is about 6 meters high, it's about 20 feet high. So quite high. The stones weigh quite a lot. You can see, I'm not quite sure whether this is in English. There's a message which has been written on it in, I think it's 8 different languages. And then we've got some on the capstone, right at the top of the structures. We've got a message in Babylonian, in hieroglyphics, in Koine Greek, and not sure whether there's another one, Chaldean or something. Yeah, Sanskrit, I think, as well. And then on here we've got on the stones, the slab stones, which are standing up vertically. We've got, I'm going to look at this in a moment. I don't remember exactly how many languages there were, but certainly English, Spanish, Arabic, Hebrew, Russian, and Chinese, I think. Anyway, we're going to look at this in a minute. I've got a slide with all the languages on there. If you're listening via the radio, it's just to explain to you what these stones look like. You've got a column in the middle, and the column rises up to about 6 meters, or roughly about 20 feet, and it's just like a square column. Then on top of the square column is a capstone, and the capstone anchors 4 massive slabs, and the slabs stand up vertically, a bit like a memorial, but they're rectangular slabs. The slabs are probably about 2 feet, maybe about 2 feet thick, about 6 meters high, and I guess I would say about 2 meters wide, which is about 6 feet wide, 20 feet high, 6 feet wide. And they are sort of anchored, obviously, in the ground, and then at the tops, to make sure they don't fall over, they're anchored into the capstone as well. And that's pretty much the structure. And then you've got on the capstone some writing. You've got a lot of writing on the slabs, and you've got a couple of other things as well. I think there's one dice which is representing the date, and then you've got little holes drilled into the stones for astronomical observations. So one is for the North Star, which you can see as soon as it gets dark, pretty much. And then you've got one slot somewhere to determine the equinox. Yeah. Okay. Or the solstice. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's some. But anyway, they're just some astronomical things. And there's a little bit of an explanation who is responsible for this stone and what the purpose is, and the astronomical things which have been stuck into the stone, and so on. Okay, now, what's the story of the stone? The stone is being created, or has been made in Alberton. It's a granite capital of the world, and the whole industry in Alberton is all about granite. So maybe the whole idea is, let's do this Alberton thing, and do this Stonehenge, American Stonehenge, get lots of people into Alberton, and make them spend lots of money. Interesting as well, we have got the Rotary Club, which is there. Then we've got Unity and Diversity, GFWC. I'm not sure whether that's the Freemasons. They have got like a little plaque on there as well, on the welcome granite block into Alberton, and something else there as well. I can't read it. Okay, and now we are back to the story. We've got Joe Findlay. Joe Findlay says that on a Friday night in June 1979, some gentleman came in and he wanted some stuff, and he said, "Oh no, we're not interested. We are just doing wholesale. We are not doing individual offers." And the story goes on that he then explained for 20 minutes what he wanted to do, and then they were a little bit more interested. The job in 1979 was rated to be in 6 digits, in 6 figures. And anyway, Joe Findlay, the mysterious Mr. R.C. Christian, who they say quite blatantly it was just a pseudonym, and Wyatt Martin, who was a bank manager, they all got together. They decided to do the structure. Joe Findlay and Wyatt Martin had to sign a non-disclosure agreement to not tell anybody that who this R.C. Christian is. Some rumors went around that R.C. Christian is a 70-year-old guy, and he has written a book as well about the whole thing under the pseudonym, about this whole philosophy and so on. And the book was sent allegedly to a lot of politicians. It's not in print anymore. But anyway, we're gonna maybe look at this at the end of the talk if you've got some time to see whether we can find this book on the internet. That's a story. The Alberton people believe that it's all just a story. There's very little truth in it, but that Joe Findlay really decided himself to create this structure. Now, Joe Findlay is a Freemason, allegedly, and he might subscribe to these globalist ideas which are peddled in amongst the humanist societies. Okay. What else have you got about the story? There are a couple of things about the story as well. I mean, they say that he came at about 3:30. The office at Alberton Granite was still full of people. Nobody remembers having seen this person. And then the story changed, and it said that everybody had already left. And then this guy came in and he spoke to Joe Findlay. And then the deal was cut out. And 1 year later, in 1980, the structure, the American Stonehenge, was unveiled. We don't know what the story is, to be honest. I tend to believe that it's a lot of hogwash. These guys are, especially from the Globalist Alliance, they love hogwash anyway. They present a truth in the media and elsewhere, which is not necessarily got to do anything with reality. But people, gobble it up, and they are happy about it, and they just move on with their lives. Maybe the same as well with this story here. Is it important whether R.C. Christian is real or not? I'm not sure. As I said, there's been a book which came out, and the whole philosophy has been sort of explained within this book. We're going to look at this in a little bit later. Anyway, the structure has been set up, and we've got the granite, the quarry as well in Alberton. So the blocks have probably been taken out of this granite, been set up, and we can see the work on the rock. So people were chopping in the letters in the rock, and they were working on it, and then eventually they were setting it all up in on the site there at Alberton, just outside Alberton in Georgia, where the Guidestones are. And then we had the opening in 1980, where everybody came and they all admired those marvelous rocks. And you can see as well, how big the structure really is. When you look at the people, obviously they're just in average a third of the size of the rock when you stand in front of it. So it's a huge, impressive structure, big letters on it, and there's a message as well. Okay, I've got a picture here what tells you a little bit about the languages which are used. So we've got Spanish, English, Russian, Chinese, Arabic, Hebrew, Hindi, and Swahili. That's the two languages I think I missed out on. Then on the capstone we've got some a message in Sanskrit and classical Greek and Babylonian cuneiform and in Egyptian hieroglyphics. Not quite sure what the purpose is. I'm sure there won't be any antique Egyptians running around here or classical Greek guys. Saying that, classical Greek is still a language which a lot of people know and can read, especially people with a theological background. Babylonian cuneiform, not sure. Egyptian, some Egyptologists, I'm sure. Sanskrit, maybe some people as well. I don't know. We've got a couple of holes in there. One points to the North Star, and what else have we got? I think that's it really. We've got some information as well. So the whole structure, or each outer stone, weighs about 42,000 pounds. So that's about 21,000 kilos, 21 tons per stone. The center stone is about 20 tons, and the capstone is about 10 tons. So it's quite heavy stuff and quite a bit. Quite heavy material there. Okay, we move on. We've got again the languages, and the languages are all sort of on an axis. The whole thing from the top looks like a letter X. There have been all sorts of speculations of the axis of, for example, English Hebrew and English Spanish and Arabic Hebrew, where this axis goes to, and people have been drawing lines across the globe, and some people came up with some ideas where it goes to close by. I'm not quite sure whether that much thought has gone into it and whether there's some mystical thing. I've got a feeling it's more like create a little bit of an advertising gimmick for the quarry people, get a few more orders in, get them known worldwide. But also, I think since Findlay was a Freemason, and the Freemason within that community, they look at all these, seemingly benevolent ideas and concepts to run society. There's a sense of arrogance because these guys are all into business and they're all high up and they get invited to join the Freemasons, that they are there to run the world's affairs, to run communities, and to make sure that the poor peasants get fed and that they get some bread on the table and so on. I think that's a little bit sometimes a little bit of a mentality. So I had a friend at work who was a Freemason, and we talked to him a little bit about it. And from his perspective, it was just I told him, I shared with him my concerns, what I think. From his perspective, it was just a benevolent society, humanistic society. We come together, we do something good for the community. Something a bit like church, but church without God, or where you get out, you do something good, you help people, you set something up, you promote business, you make sure everything goes round and that everything is fine. The problem we have with the Freemasons is that sometimes ideas are perpetuated, they are moved throughout this Freemason community, which are not good, and on the contrary, which are downright evil and wicked. And if you look at it from a Christian perspective, there are huge problems. You have do certain rituals which are very much opposed to anything Christian and anything which comes from God. And we're going to look at some of these ideas which are put on these stones in a minute. So here we've got a hole. That one looks to the North Star. The North Star is a fixed star. It's right at the top of the axis of the Earth. So as the Earth moves around the Sun, the polar star or North Star never changes its position, so it's always at the same point. So you can literally drill a hole through a stone, make it point to the North Star, and as soon as it gets dark, you'll be able to see it. Okay, let's go to the 10 Guidestone Commandments, and that's really the main issue I want to sort of try and tackle with this talk. The first commandment is maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Okay, we've got a problem here. Humanity is, at the moment, it's about 7 billion. They say 500 million. And that means we have to get rid of humanity of about 92% of the human population to hit this figure. A lot of people are very concerned about it, and they ask justifiably the question is, how do we get the population, or how do these guys suggest to get the population down to 500 million? And they again say it has to be done in perpetual balance with nature. And the answer, of course, is you have to kill them all, or there has to be a catastrophe, which leads to about the slaughter of 90% of the people who walk on the planet of the Earth. Where did this figure come from? Up till about the 19th century, human population was sort of as far as it can be tracked back, and I doubt those figures anyway, because nobody really knows what the real population is. They are all based on guesstimates. The human population up till about the 19th century was roughly about 500 million, and then within 200 years it skyrocketed. And the reason why it skyrocketed was due to advances in medicine, so longevity increased, and also the child death rate decreased. So many more babies would survive, would mature to adulthood than maybe 200-300 years ago. I remember the story of Albrecht Dürer. I think he had 11 children or something. Albrecht Dürer was a great artist in medieval times. I think he had 11 children, and only 1 or 2 they went to adulthood. All the others died in childhood. So there were a lot of childhood diseases, and a lot of kids they didn't make it. They died prematurely. So obviously medicine came, new hygiene standards and everything else, and suddenly babies who are premature or children who have got quite serious diseases, they can be healed, and they can be, gotten around, and population increases quite dramatically. And especially if traditionally cultures are still used to high, large families, to high birth rates, there is still this element of exponential population growth. Okay, so these guys say 500,000, 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. So suddenly nature is very important. That seems to be the key. It's not us who are important, people who are important, it's nature who is important. And again, from a globalist point of view, humanist point of view, this is what those guys believe. There has to be just enough people for the earth to support them. And they came up with this figure of 500 million. Now, what does the Bible say? And this is my perspective. The Bible says quite the opposite. It says, be fruitful and multiply, spread across the face of the earth. These were commands in Genesis, and that's what has been happening to some extent. And obviously there's been some perversion creeping in, that we, in the last maybe 100, 200 years, especially in the last 50 years, it's become perfectly acceptable to kill babies in the womb. So we can kill our children, that's okay, if they don't fit into our lifestyle for whatever reason. But and again, this is all being promoted by the humanist agenda, by the globalist agenda, to encourage people to kill their own offspring because of lifestyle choices, not having enough money. Maybe deliberately they keep them in a position that they do not have enough money to survive on that. But at this point, I just want to say I've got uttermost respect for women who, despite very difficult circumstances, decide and choose for their children to be born. And I want to applaud you at this point, and I want to congratulate you and express to you my highest regard and respect for making a decision in favor of life, despite all the odds. And my prayers are with you that God will supply all your needs, and that you will not fall short because of the decision you have made in bringing a life which was maybe unplanned into the world. Anyway, there's a huge problem. First of all, how did they come up with half a billion people? I have to say I don't trust science in our day and generation anymore. There are too many lies within the scientific. I love science. I'm an engineer by trade, and I'm an academic. So I love science and I love research. I think research is very important. What I find, though, is that a lot of research is blighted and is blinded by other interests. And very often there are money interests, there are political interests, there's political correctness and other things which feed into research, and they color or they change the results the research is going into. And I would imagine some scientists came up with this figure and they said that this would be a sustainable figure for the planet. Anything beyond that is not. I would like to dispute that on the grounds that there are vast tracts on our planet which are uninhabited. If anybody has sort of been flying around a bit, I would like to challenge you to fly to Africa and to look from above of the vast areas where no person is living. Fly across Russia and Eastern Europe, and it's the same thing. Fly across North America, same thing. Look at the statistics of how many people are actually living in South America, and the numbers are really, really low compared to some areas in Asia, for example, India or China. The point I'm making is there are vast tracts of land which are uninhabited and where nothing is happening. No food is grown there. No, nothing is done to apply agriculture, anything like that. So the point I'm making is the world is more than capable of supporting 7 billion people, possibly even 10 billion people, maybe even 20 billion people. There are a lot of technologies, there are a lot of means how we can, again, without raping and vandalizing nature. I'm not in favor of being crazy and being stupid and just destroying nature. But on the other side, I'm not elevating nature to almost a godlike status. Now, the message we've got in the Bible, and again, that's my standard, is we should be fruitful and multiply. We should fill the earth, and that is what God has said. And that's what we should do. I don't see a problem in these guys. And at this point, I would say that this is almost a command, which is, you know, when you say, okay, up to 500 million and then stop, no more overproduction per couple, 2 kids. If a couple is sterile or cannot bear children, this gives a right for another couple to have 3 kids. In my opinion, this is just it's blasphemy. It's bordering at blasphemy. God says one thing, these guys come along and they say, we know better. God, who are you anyway? So we know better, and this is what we say, 500 million. And we need to be in perpetual balance with nature. Okay, the next one is also quite a very interesting one. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. When you look at all these things which are on this list, let me just read the whole list and then I'm going to go through it one by one. The list itself on the surface sounds very benevolent and very enlightened. Yeah? But when we dig through what this is really saying and what it will require to implement, we are coming to a very dark interpretation of what these guys are actually saying. Okay, I'm going to mention the first commandment, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. The second commandment of these guys is guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. The third commandment, unite humanity with a living language, or with a living new language. The fourth commandment, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. The fifth commandment, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. The sixth, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. 7, avoid petty laws and useless officials. 8, balance personal rights with social duties. 9, prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. And then 10, be not a cancer on the earth, leave room for nature, leave room for nature. Okay, now these are the guides, or the guidelines, or the commandments these guys have made. I've mentioned the first commandment, 500 million. What are these guys trying to do? Are they trying to nuke us all? Are they trying to kill us? To throttle down the world's population to 500 million? I don't know, you know. Are they waiting for a catastrophic event and then, rise up out of the ashes and set everything up? Okay, we go to the next one. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Yeah? Sounds all very good and sounds nice. Improving fitness, go to the gym. Diversity, let Africans talk to Europeans and Europeans to Americans, Native Americans with Asians, and so on. All, picture perfect world. That's all nice and that's good. If marriages happen across ethnic lines, there's nothing wrong with that. That's okay as well. Yeah, comes with problems, but sometimes a challenge to be overcome, and that's good. Improving fitness. Nothing said against it. And then this one, guide reproduction wisely. How do you guide reproduction wisely? Now, in the Bible, and I want to, again, that's my basis where I'm arguing from. In the Bible, we've got Song of Songs. Yeah, Song of Songs is a book which describes the relationship between a man and a woman. Proverbs talks about that there's something too wonderful to understand, and that is the way of a man with a maiden. And this is a big thing, How do you control love? People fall in love, and there's no logic to it. There's no reason to it. And again, you can't use reason as a guidance. And then they reproduce. They have common children who are born in love, and these children grow up. They may be cross culture. They may be cross race, cross racial. There may not be. I don't know. Yeah, but how do you guide reproduction wisely? What do you do? Do you determine who marries whom? Now the problem, and you've seen on the first slide Adolf Hitler. Yeah, and this is pretty much what he was suggesting and what he was implementing. He had so-called breeding stations where people were selected according to physical properties: blonde, tall, blue-eyed, big, sturdy frame, strong. And men were used as well, and women were inseminated, and new babies were created. And it wasn't done out of love; it was just done because they wanted to create this super race consisting of blonde Germans who would, in the future, sometime rule the world. And this was all, orchestrated by a small, hunchback, dark-haired, brown-eyed guy. So it's all a bit weird to me. But anyway, that is what this guy did, and that is what they decided. So, for example, in the Third Reich, there was, within Judaism, we've got a problem. If a Jewish girl tries to marry a Gentile, and the family has got some roots within Judaism still left, there's a big problem. They don't like it and they don't want it. They want the Jewish girl to marry a Jewish boy. It's very important for them. If you go back to the Nazis, they did the same thing. If there was a German, non-Jewish German, wanting to marry a German Jew, that was a big problem, and it was eventually outlawed. And people ended up in concentration camps for marrying a Jewish spouse. So either a man or a woman. And then again, we've got another problem as well, improving fitness and diversity. And they are suggesting this, since it is in one statement, I would think it's implied, that this is through selective breeding. Now, I've got a real problem with that. First of all, it's not biblical at all. What about disabled people? Are we suggesting to them that they should not reproduce? Should they? Again, the Nazis, they did all this stuff. They, I think the wider term was used, eugenics. So what they used to do is, you had some doctors, they went to a school and they got all the lads out and they were asking them a few questions. And if they got the impression that one of the lads was a bit stupid, and then sometimes it was as silly as that, they ask him, there are a couple of pigeons on the roof, 3 pigeons on the roof, somebody comes and he shoots 1 pigeon off the roof. How many are left? And then the boys would laugh and say, "Oh yeah, 2 are left. I know that. That's easy." And that was the end of it. Obviously he shot. The other birds got scared and they flew away. So there's none of the birds are left on the roof. So that was a clever answer. So if you gave a wrong answer to that extent, very often those boys were selected out. They were taken to the doctor. The doctor would do an incision, and after that they were sterile. They couldn't reproduce. And that's the kind of stuff which was happening. I know one lady who married a man who was sterilized by the Nazis. She always wanted children, and I never met. I met her when she was in her 70s. I never met her ex-husband. Her husband had died. She was a widow, but she really suffered that she never had children, and she always wanted children. She was a really kind and good woman, but she never had any children because she married somebody who had been mutilated by the Nazis. And this is what these guys are saying. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. It sounds all good, it sounds positive, but ultimately the consequence is that these guys will have programs of sterilization. It's happened in Serbia as well. This is just recently in the concentration camps over there, where they got all the Muslim guys together. And they obviously they wanted to change the gene pool, and they just exposed them to an inordinate amount of X-ray radiation to make sure that they were sterilized in the process. So they wouldn't kill them, but they made sure they couldn't, produce more little Muslims. Okay, next one is unite humanity with a living new language. And again, we've got a command which goes right against the Bible. The Bible, we had at the Tower of Babel, the guys were building something, people got together and they didn't want to be scattered. God told them, cover the face of the earth, scatter the face over the face of the earth, be fruitful and multiply. They didn't want to do this. They wanted to stick together. They built the Tower of Babel. Whatever the Tower of Babel was. Some people today would say it's some sort of magic porthole, or some say it was just a power which went into heaven. Some people say it was some cultic place, where they tried to connect with, the dark side. Again, we don't know. But what happened is God confused the languages and made people scatter across the planet. So the whole Babel thing was, you move, scatter the planet, and build your own cultures, build your own nations. What we are getting here is the reverse trend. They say, oh, we all need to get together, one new language, spoken by everybody, and we unite. I want to say that there's a big danger. And I don't like globalism from the point of view that if you get one big nation. Yeah. And there's nobody to really control this nation. There's no weight against it. And you've got one big bully boy. They control everything. They can pretty much do what they want. And there's nobody there to really control them or, put some checks and balances in. And I think what we have in politics very often, and we've had this throughout the ages, that you always got like some crazy dictators, some people who were going a bit over the top. And the good thing was that we always had sometimes, some other nations as well, which were a little bit more benevolent, a little bit more fair, less crazy, and there were some checks and balances within the world of politics. Now, what these guys are saying now, no more checks and balances, one human language, and everybody should use this language, and then we're all united in one go. Is this good? Is this not good? Personally, I would say it's not good. I think it's evil. It's going against the command God has given us. Saying all that, in the past, we always had languages which were universally recognized. In Africa, we had Swahili as a trading language. In the Roman Empire, we had Latin and Greek. And Latin, throughout medieval times, was used by academics throughout Europe. We had Russian in the East, which was used very, 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 very widely. Obviously, we had Chinese, but the Chinese always tended to be pretty much doing their own thing. But they use the pictograms. I mean, I understand Chinese as such didn't exist. It's a modern creation, but they used pictograms. They had a language, the written language, which was understood by every Chinese person, even though the spoken language sometimes was very, very different from one place to another. Today we've got Spanish and English. We've got French as well. Is one of the main languages. So it's not really a need for that. There are common languages spoken. There are trading languages, and there have always been trading languages being around. Throughout the history of mankind. But anyway, enforcing a new language on every nation, on every, I think is very dangerous. And I'd give you another reason as well. I happen to be bilingual. I speak German and English fluently. I speak a little bit of Russian. One thing I've noticed between those two languages is that language defines culture and identity. So there are these two things. Even in England, there are many different dialects. And the dialect you speak pretty much defines the region where you come from. It defines your identity, and it defines a certain type of culture as well. Now, the problem I have with unifying all languages is that we don't have we end up with losing culture and with losing identity, and we just get absorbed in some sort of superficial structure, identity, which doesn't give you strong bonds to whatever community you belong to. And again, I want to make the point, it's really, really important. If you don't have identity, you don't have culture, you're losing something of your heritage, and you are very easily absorbed into something else, which is not necessarily a good thing. So unite humanity, I don't know. With a living new language, certainly not. No, thank you. We need trading languages, and that's okay. And we can communicate in trading languages and use them. And at the moment, I would say probably for all intents and purposes, it's English. But that's about all. We don't need to force a language on every person. I just want to get you to look at the Ukraine. The conflict you've got in the Ukraine at the moment sparked off because the Ukrainian parliament wanted to force on the Eastern Ukrainians who speak Russian, but they speak Russian with a Ukrainian dialect. So it's not even the Russians speak, but it's something different, slightly different. They wanted to force them to speak Ukrainian, and they didn't want to go along with that. They just didn't want it. And so the whole thing just sparked off, and they said, what do you guys want, and so on. And suddenly you've got a civil war going on, which sparked off by just imposing one language on a group of people, on a people group. Okay, protect people and nations. Okay, right, what have we got now? Next one. Next one is rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Okay, rule passion. faith, tradition. Okay, what does it mean? This is the first question. What does it mean to rule passion? What does it mean to rule faith? What does it mean to rule tradition? So I cannot be passionate about something. So I need to kill my passion. Faith. I happen to believe in freedom of religion, and I happen to believe in freedom of speech. Yeah. I'm a very vehement believer in that. I don't care whether people are offensive or are saying stupid things or saying things which are not true. But I believe that a fundamental right every human person has is freedom of speech. Every person should be able to say what they think without fear of persecution or reprimand. Now, freedom of speech has been a right which has not been around for a long time in Europe. And I've seen over the last 10, 15 years that due to political correctness, freedom of speech has been eroded. Your freedom of speech is within a box. Once you go outside this box, you are in trouble. And you lose your job, you might find to end up in court, you might be put into prison. And we are back to where we were in, not actually, there exactly where they were in medieval days, but we are on the way to going back to being there in medieval days. We've got the liberalist agenda, the secularists, they are telling us what we are allowed to think, they are telling us what we are allowed to talk about. And we've got the phrase here as well, with tempered reason. So we need to temper our reason, and it's all about the no hate stuff, making sure that nobody gets offended by whatever we say, and then we can express tradition, faith, and passion. Basically, the way I read it, it gives whoever is in power a carte blanche to dictate on what you can say, what you can believe, what traditions you can hold to, and the amount of passion you can have on any subject or any aspect. And again, I find this very dangerous. Your faith is something very personal. Your tradition is something which is unique to your people group. Again, it's very personal. It's very specific to a particular people group. And your passion, again, is something very personal. Who is ruling it? Why do they want to rule it? And what restriction do they want to place on this? To me, it sounds like despotism. It's a bit like what the fascists used to do. Is they were directing passion towards their party and towards the nationalist socialist ideals. Their faith was directed towards them. They wouldn't allow other faith. They were tempering it. And the traditions, they were redefined. They only allowed German traditions, and they redefined them, and they had some sort of Germanism, or whatever you want to call it, which came up, and they started indoctrinating people on that level. All been done by them, yeah. We've had it with the Nazis. They had German as a common language. The globalists probably go for English or some other language, maybe Esperanto or something. They ruled faith, passion, tradition. The Nazis say they were there to guide reproduction wisely, making sure that only fit people were born, sterilizing people who were slightly disabled or unfit or considered to be stupid because they couldn't solve a little riddle in class when the doctor came, so they went for the snip-snip. Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Sounds good, and it's probably very, very little you can see against this. The only problem is, what are fair laws and just courts? Who decides what is fair and just? I know here in Britain people have lost the plot. We have now got hatred laws. Somebody standing up, making comparison between Christ and Muhammad, and the guy ended up being arrested. This is what's happening now in our justice system in the UK. Everything is okay as long as you don't, you stay within this framework. If you step outside of it, we're going to hammer you and we're going to persecute you. Let all nations rule internally. Yeah, that's okay. They can rule their own affairs, resolving external disputes in a world court. And now my big question is, who has got the world court? Who is in charge of the world court? What powers does a world court have? How many powers do we give the world court? Do we create an army which is the army of all armies, and they can oppress a nation if they decide not to go along with whatever the world court says? I find this very dangerous. This is globalism to the utmost, I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's good. The problem we are dealing with in democracy in the modern world is that we always get people who use democratic means to create something like a dictatorship, to then rule with their egos, with sometimes noble aspirations and sometimes with rotten aspirations, and to build something for themselves. We can see this in America at the moment. We can see this. We've seen this in Africa, all over, all the time really. Democratic elections ended up in a despot getting into power, doing whatever he wants, and pretty much very often destroying his nation and destroying people, killing thousands, if not millions, in the process. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. I think everybody would agree with that. But again, what is a petty law? What is a useful official? Who makes a decision of who is useless? And what is a petty law? And the next one is very tricky. We've got balanced personal rights with social duties. What are social duties? I don't know. It's very, very difficult. Obviously, we're all paying tax. Most Western democracies have got some welfare state. To me, it's a very difficult thing. It depends how you interpret this. One of the things which this list, or these 10 commandments of globalism, what they suggest is that the individual is irrelevant. You're not allowed to have your personal faith, your passion, your tradition has to be tempered. You're not allowed to speak the language you've been born into, but you have to adapt. I mean, it's done in the past and it's been very unfair. The Welsh people in Wales, they were forced to learn English as a first language, and they were beaten if they spoke Welsh. Things like that. I mean, there's a lot of things which went wrong. In Alsace-Lorraine, people were forced to speak French in school, and they lost their German dialect in the process. Guide reproduction wisely. Same thing. Why does the state or anybody interfere in the way you reproduce, in the way who you marry? If you fall in love with a disabled person, why is it wrong to reproduce? Ethically, is it wrong? Is it not wrong? My suggestion is from the Bible. No, it's not wrong. People are not born for this world, but they are born for eternity. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Again, how are you going to implement this, and how you what are you doing to try and achieve this? To me, this is all it's like a fascist doctrine which is splurted out here, but not on a national level, but it's on a globalist level. So we are back to personal rights and duties, social duties, and we need a balance there. Now, you have got, in my opinion, there are personal rights which are given to you by nature, which cannot be argued against, and one of them is the dignity of man. I think this is a personal right. The right to free speech, the right to pursue happiness. A lot of things are in the American Constitution, and it's a good thing. What is in there? Balance it with social duties is very difficult. The Bible has got a very clear concept. You have to look after your own. That's your social duty. If you don't look after your own family, and that includes your parents, your children, your wife, and everybody else, and you don't do this, you're worse than a godless. That's what the Bible says. So we have this balance of social duties there. After that, you have a duty to your neighbor, who may be in trouble, and you are there to help him. That's your social duty. Then obviously there are these checks and balances. So if he is lazy, doesn't want to work, you don't have to give him. But if he is, hit hard times or whatever, he's willing to work, then it's your duty to make sure that your neighbor is okay. So there are social duties which are very clearly defined in the Bible, welfare duties as well. But who is determining it, and who controls the balance? And this, for me, is a worrisome thing. If God controls it, it's going to be perfect. If man controls it, it's going to be abused, and it's going to be going to end up in tears. The next one: pride, truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. And here we've got outright blasphemy. Truth, yeah. Jesus says of himself he is truth. Do I prize Jesus? Very much so. Beauty, of course, yeah. Love, where does love come from? Ultimately, all love comes from God. True love comes from God. Seeking harmony with the infinite. And here we've got a problem. What is the infinite? What are these guys talking about? And let me just go back to the Decalogue, to the first commandments, to the 10 Commandments. And it says, do not worship any other gods, do not make any idols, do not misuse the name of God. Let's go back. What is the infinite? And why should I seek harmony with the infinite? Is the infinite God? And it sounds like it's just another term for God, and they don't dare to use the term God. But then I go to the commandments, and it says, do not worship other gods. So if I seek harmony with the infinite, isn't it some type of worship? Do not make any idols. If I worship the infinite, isn't the infinite an idol? Do not misuse the name of God. Now, if I call God infinite, or the infinite, am I not misusing the name of God? Yeah. So I'm just going to this Decalogue, and I'm thinking, this is wrong. This is absolutely wrong. What is the infinite? All this comes across as some pantheistic concept. It's just, pure paganism. I mean, don't get me wrong. I look sometimes at night into space, and I'm just amazed by the endlessness. And to me, it's just sort of a fingerprint of God. I sometimes go to the beach and I look at the, up to the horizon on the water, knowing that the water just goes on and on and on and on and on, until if I'm in England, until it goes to America. If I'm in America, I've never been on the Atlantic coast, but I've been at the Pacific coast. The next stop is going to be Japan or China or the Philippines or somewhere. The point I'm making is there's something magic about the infinite. There's no question about it. But for me, all it is just something that points to God, the same as creation points to God. All you need to do is look through a microscope and look into a drop of water, or look into, just rip a leaf off a tree and look at the magic of the leaf. And you can see the fingerprint of God, the infinite design and everything. But to call God the infinite is, in my opinion, blasphemy, and is wrong. There is a God, and there's no question about it that there is a God. To embrace atheism and then come up with these things is just infinite. It's just calling it infinite. It's just blasphemy. And then let's look at the last commandment, and that really, really worries me. Don't be a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. So suddenly we've got nature, which is a God. Leave room for nature. I would say leave room for Jesus in your life. Leave room for God. And even that is not right, because God should be, the first and the be-all in your life. He should be, you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. That's the highest commandment. And that should be the commandment you should follow. Again, leave room for God. Obviously, but he should be the be all and end all in your life. That's the point I'm making here. It's not nature. Nature is just something God has created, and it's a creation. It's not God himself. So if I build a small car for the kid, like get my saw out and for example, I make a stupid example, but it'll sort of help to illustrate what I'm talking about. I made a paper plane for a little boy, and he was really excited about the paper plane because it was flying very well and was different to anything else he had seen so far. So I'm the designer of the paper plane. I'm the one who has made the paper plane, and I've adjusted and modified the design I learned as a kid, and so it's slightly different. Now, if he praises a paper plane and says, "Oh, paper plane, how wonderful you are! This paper plane is really, really great, it's so marvelous," and blah, 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 blah. He takes away the glory from me. I mean, I'm not seeking glory about making a paper plane. I'm just making the point here. I'm the designer. I'm the one who's made the paper plane. I've, modified the design to make it fly a little bit better. So I'm the one who should get, and I'm talking in inverted commas, the glory of the paper plane. So if he wants another paper plane, he shouldn't go to the paper plane and say, "Paper plane, be another paper plane," but he should come to me and say, "Can you make me another paper plane?" And that's a little bit about nature and God. God is the creator of nature. Nature is not God. Nature is just all it shouts out and, tells us about. It's about the glory of God, that there is a God. This God is a genius. He has created all this. And, it's self-replicating, it's self-healing, it's cursed as well, so it can be quite destructive and it can create a lot of problems for us. But ultimately we should give the praise and honor to the living God and not to a leaf, not to the paper plane, not to whatever we have. And what these guys are saying is, oh yeah, there's nature, you need to leave room for nature. Nature is the be-all and end-all. Nature is the one that's born you. If it weren't for nature, you wouldn't be here. A lot of rubbish. If it weren't for God, you wouldn't be here. God is the beginning. He is the Alpha and the Omega. He is the beginning and the end. Now, they have tried with these commandments to put God out of the equation and to celebrate reason. Reason is your thinking power. But all they do is they come up with some very foolish stuff here. And the one which, there's obviously the first one is the one which worries me most. And then the other one is... not the very last one, but the one before, which is be not a cancer on the earth. What do you do with a cancer? If you are a cancer, if you decide to be a cancer, if you decide to multiply, on earth, and you don't have just 2 kids, but you've got 10 kids. If you decide you master nature by using agriculture and using good agricultural methods to produce food. This is, at the moment, is pretty much accepted. But what do they do with you? What do these guys do with you? What do you do with a cancer? If you find a cancer, you cut it out and you destroy it. You remove it from its source, where it gets its bloodstream from, and you kill it. That's what you do with a cancer. And that is what worries me with these statements. These are the 10 Guidestone commandments. I think pretty much all 10 of them are rubbish. I think all they do is they represent a globalist agenda. I think the agenda has been spoken about 100 years ago. So some of the laws and the things you find here, they've been around for a long, long time, and I think they're downright dangerous. I think this thing is pure blasphemy. And it's bad. It's really, really bad what's been written up here. And obviously, a lot of people they get quite upset about this, especially Georgia. Georgia's in the Bible Belt. A lot of Christians who see this stuff, they would, if they look at it a little bit closer. Initially, it sounds really, really good, but if they look a little bit closer, they would be very much upset about this. And let me show you the next picture, and you can see they are very much upset about it. We've got I've got a bunch of pictures here. First of all, there have been a lot of vandalism on these things. People with red paint have been spraying slogans on these stones. Let me read some of them to you. Death to the New World Order. No one world order. Government. That's on the other one. And then on another stone, in big letters, you will not succeed. Jesus will beat you, Satanists. True, totally agree. Jesus is going to get you sooner or later. So don't mess with my king. And the King of Kings, ultimately he will be in control and he will get you guys. The problem is he loves you and he wants you to turn around now. And there's a chance for you to turn around and to surrender your life to Christ, especially if you are one of the adherents of the globalist agenda. What else have we've got there? Obama is a Muslim. I certainly know he's not a Christian with some of the stuff he's been saying. As on the contrary, I would say he's very much opposed to Christianity with some of the statements he made. I heard him say some really disturbing statements about the Bible, mocking the Bible. At that point, I wonder why America is voting this guy in. Then again, is the election system okay? Is it kosher with electronic ballot boxes? I don't know. What else have we got? We've got some more. I can't read it. There are plenty of them on on Google. Just go to Google, put in Georgia Guidestones, click on pictures and images, and you get them. This has been quite a problem, the vandalism. Obviously, there are quite a lot of heavy sentiments, and I'm not surprised at that. It's when you look at what these guys are saying is wicked, is evil. It's straight from the devil's mouth. Yeah. It's a satanistic agenda these guys are pursuing, which results in death, control. Anything what God has ordained is opposed as far as mankind is concerned. Now, the Alberton Police Department, the Sheriff Department, they've set up a camera. I can see as well there's a nice little box on a pole with a little antenna. So it's a wireless signal. Might be interesting as well to tune in, see whether you can get into the camera. I'm not sure whether it's recorded or goes straight to the Sheriff Department. So if somebody does some vandalism, there's a good chance you get recorded, and they're going to get you. There's another one as well. Somebody gives a finger to the and has taken a photo of himself to the Guidestones. It's probably as far as I would go. Just to illustrate where the finger comes from. When the English were fighting the French, that's where the legend goes from. If they had some French prisoners, the English had really good archers, and they had longbows, so they could shoot over very long distances with longbows. So this was before muskets and everything. So what the French used to do is they cut off, instead of killing the whole Englishman, if they had a prisoner, they just cut off his finger. Yeah? So he couldn't use his finger for archery, and that was the middle finger. So when the French and the English armies opposed one another, the French would show them, the English would show them the finger to show them that they've still got their finger and that they can still use their finger for archery. And that's where the symbol comes. It's just like a symbol of contempt and of mockery. So giving somebody the finger. So it's later, I think it was understood to have a sexual connotation. Originally, it wasn't there. It just meant, look, I've still got my finger. I can still do archery. That's what it originally meant, and I can use it to fight you. Okay. Anyway, somebody's given the finger to the Guidestones. Again, that's probably, and took a photo of himself. That's probably as far as I would go. I wouldn't. It's not really our job as Christians to. It's our job to stand up against these guys, to make known that this is wrong. It's not our job to destroy these structures, to destroy temples of atheism. They can keep their temples, that's okay. I haven't got a problem with that. Ultimately, God will destroy them. What I would suggest to you, though, is just pray about it. Just pray that God's judgment will come upon this thing, and that maybe God will strike the thing with lightning and destroy the structures. That would be quite a strong testimony against these guys who represent these orders and to represent the globalism. Just to give you an example, the Bishop of Durham here, he made a point that Jesus, or that Mary, was not really a virgin, I think, and that Jesus was not really God. And he was a Bishop of Durham, yeah. So you think, how can this guy, he's supposed to be one of the top guys, how can he say anything like that? They are this is the ABC of Christianity. I don't believe in that. Become a Muslim, do something else, but don't pretend to be a Christian. Anyway, a day later, the Cathedral of Durham got hit by lightning, and I think it was set on fire or something. And there was quite a bit of an interesting thing. The guy pretty much became a joke within English culture. The Bishop of Durham, everybody knows. Okay, he denied Christ. A day later, lightning hit his cathedral, which he's supposed to dwell over. Why not, this atheistic monument? Why not let this be struck by lightning? I would suggest, if in your prayer time, just bring this before God and pray that he'll be justified, that there'll be a lightning, hurricane, tornado, anything to destroy the structure, and to proclaim, his judgment upon this structure, upon this nonsense that's written on there. Okay, last one, before I leave and finish this talk, are we supposed to be worried about this structure? No, we've got those 10 commandments, and we've got these threats, 500 million, reduce the world's population, which means we need to kill off a lot of people to get there. Let's go to a psalm, yeah. And I'm just looking at it. I think it's Psalm 1. Okay. Psalms. I'm just putting... I always go to BibleGateway.com to look at scriptures. It's very fast, and you've got different translations as well. Psalm 1 is similar. Let me just get this. It's Psalm 2, yeah. And I'm just going to read it to you, and it's a bit of an encouragement as well. Don't fear these guys, yeah. That's the point I'm making. God is in control. These guys may have some power, but there are limits, okay? And this is Psalm 2, and it says here, "Why do the nations conspire, and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth rise up, and the rulers band together against the Lord, against his anointed, saying, Let us break their chains and throw off their shackles. The one enthroned in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. He rebukes them in his anger. He terrifies them in his wrath, saying, I have installed my king on Zion, on my holy mountain. I will proclaim the Lord's decree. He said to me, You are my son. Today I have become your father. Ask me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, and the ends of the earth your possession. You will break them with a rod of iron. You will dash them with pieces like pottery. Therefore, you kings, be wise. Be warned, you rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear, and celebrate his rule with trembling. Kiss his son, or he will be angry, and your way will lead to your destruction, for his wrath can flare up in a moment. Blessed are all who take refuge in him." Okay. I'm not sure whether I should go through this again. It's a warning to you guys. So if you are the globalists, and you are the 10 Guidestone commandment guys, this is what God is saying to you. Therefore be kings, be wise, be warned, you rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear, and celebrate his rule with trembling. And your way will lead to your destruction, for his wrath can flare up in a moment. Blessed are all who take refuge in him. It's just a warning to you. You can go against us, you can, try to destroy mankind. Mankind doesn't belong to you. It doesn't even belong to the devil. Ultimately, it belongs to God. And the devil may have certain rights, and you may serve this guy, you may serve the devil, but there are limits. And you need to be aware of these limits. And as you are following a lie, you probably aren't aware of the limits you have. But ultimately, God is going to get you. And one day you stand before him, and you have to give account to whatever you have done. And here on earth, you may think, okay, I don't think about eternity. I just want to have a good time here on earth. I belong to the elite, to the bankers, to the guys who make the world go round, to the industrialists, to the top guys. I'm okay. God can take you in a moment. Your life can be finished in an instant. And you need to be aware of that. So you should humble yourself before God and really seek him with all your heart and all your life. And you don't do this, you may end up like one of these guys, God's wrath upon your life can flare up in a moment. And blessed are only those who take refuge in God. So you better take refuge in God. You don't take refuge in the arms of atheists, globalists, humanists, and other people who are completely mistaken, who have lost the plot, who are leading mankind astray. But you better follow God. That's all I say. The camera isn't on, so you can't see me. Otherwise, I would also, in a triumphant way, raise my middle finger to the 10 Guidestones in Georgia. If I ever make it there, I'll certainly take a photo and publish it. Maybe with my face as well. I'm not afraid of that. I take refuge in God Almighty, and that's my position. I find this very disturbing what these guys have written. The problem is it's not just here. These guys, they are in high places. They are pushing the agenda. When you look at some of the top politicians in Europe, in America, they are pretty much following this agenda. And all I can see is evil and wickedness. Okay, I'm going to close on this. We were talking about the Georgia Guidestones. Very contentious. They've been vandalized, with graffiti and other bits. I'm not, again, just in case anybody gets me wrong, what I suggest to you is to pray, to seek God, to bring judgment upon these stones. Don't do it yourself. Yeah, don't do it yourself. Let it be some supernatural weather phenomenon or lightning strike or something, but don't do it yourself. Just to clarify this at the end of this talk. And these stones are evil. They're wicked. What they represent is evil, is wicked. The story around their inception seems to be filled with lies. Yeah. I'm not sure what the true story is, but it's pretty pathetic if whoever has put them up cannot stand to it and cannot put his name to it. So we've got R.C. Christian, who is a pseudonym, but again, suggestions are that it's Fendley and some of his mates who have put it up. Maybe out of business reasons, and maybe because he's a Freemason, and that's pretty much what they follow, brotherhood of mankind and unity and stuff like that. Under wrong auspices. Maybe that's what he is. That's what he stuck on there. Maybe with a desire to stir up some controversy. But when we look at what these guys are saying, it's pretty much what the Nazi machine was propagating and what they were suggesting. And when we look at the 10 Commandments, I find it quite blasphemous that these guys come up with 10 commands or commandments or 10 statements. Probably leaning on the Bible with the 10 Commandments we've got in the Torah, in the Old Testament, that they are just coming up with some strange stuff in in competition to the Bible, I guess. My final analysis of the Guidestones is that these Guidestones are wicked, they're evil. They are presenting a philosophy which is anti-Christian, is anti-biblical, and is blasphemous, where the name of God is being misused. They pursue a pantheistic concept. There are some very dangerous statements in there about the cancer of society, the cancer, which needs cutting out, that's the implication, and depopulating the world, which again is very, very dangerous. Okay, I hope you are a little bit stirred up by this. Just pray about this. Yeah, I mean, it's not just there are other Guidestones as well. Pray about those people who are behind this as well, and pray in two instances, or in two directions. One prays that the gospel really gets to them, that they will have a real experience with God and with Jesus Christ. And pray for these guys, pray for the globalists, that they will see the light, that they will turn around, and that they will have a real experience with Christ. Many of them have turned around, and there are reports of many people who come from, out of these circuits, out of Freemasons, out of Satanism, out of, the Illuminatis and the others. There are lots of them there. But also pray that the power of these guys is curbed, that they cannot do what they plan to do. Ultimately, again, read Psalm 2. God laughs at them. Don't be worried. They are plotting against... They are conspiring and they are plotting against the Most High. They are plotting against God. And that's really what these guys are doing. We want a world without God. And the one enthroned in heaven laughs. And the Lord scoffs at them. And Psalm 2, the last verse, blessed are all who take refuge in him. Take refuge in God. Don't be worried about these guys. They're evil, they're wicked. They do control a lot of stuff. They are very powerful. They are the movers and shakers, unfortunately, but they don't have to be. Ultimately, God is in control. Ultimately, these guys will be judged one day, and some of them will be judged here on earth as well. So you will find that some of these guys, their lives will be cut short. Judgment will come upon them, and they'll be finished. So just pray seriously. Pray about America. Pray about the world. Pray about globalism. Pray that God's word will stand, and that the power of these guys is curbed, that they cannot do what they want to do, but that they can only do what God allows them to do, which, again, is the limit anyway. And whatever God allows them to do should be within our agenda, which is the agenda of the church, within the agenda of the kingdom of God. Finally, I just want to encourage you, and I just want to finish on one verse, and that verse is, seek first the kingdom of God. That's the first and utmost thing you should do. This part of the presentation is just for you to highlight what is out there, the philosophies which are pushed down the media, which is pushed down the media, which is presented to people, and people are supposed to think this is really good and benevolent, and there's some almost funny statements in there about inefficient officials and stuff like that, useless officials. We all can agree with that, but there's a lot of disturbing stuff on there as well. Okay, that's it. This is Seismic Radio, www.seismicradio.org. If you want to check it out, you can do it on YouTube. Just click on the button, go to the video section and select the video. And otherwise, don't worry. Take strength in Christ. Make him your refuge. And you will be safe. You will be safe. He will look after you. God bless and bye-bye from Michael here at Seismic Radio.